Good evening, everybody. I would like to call to order the Manlius Town Board meeting for July 26, 2023 at just after 6:30 p.m. As always, we are hybrid, so we've got a Zoom meeting that's running. Link to it is in the top of the agenda. That's how all of our meetings go, where you can find the link to join us. If you have public comment or open podium, you can always weigh in over Zoom. We're also sharing to Facebook, YouTube, and to our own website. So lots of ways to tune in and find out what's going on. So we do have some special guests tonight. We have Troop 210, who is here for I believe a merit badge, and one of the things they got to do is come to a public meeting. But we think it's a great public meeting, and I'm just going to ask them to lead us in the pledge of allegiance. Okay, next up, we have open podium, opportunity for folks to come in, share a comment, question, concern, with the board. As usual, we ask folks to stick about 3 minutes for those. Is there anyone here, I don't believe we have any sign ups, is there anyone here in person for open podium? That is not relevant to, public hearing on the agenda? Okay, we have anybody on Zoom, you use the raise hand function. Okay. First time I'm on that. We will roll right into the rest of the meeting. After finding out the proclamation to share this.
Today is the 33rd anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities signing into law. We had a ribbon cutting at the old Canal at Poolsbrook for an accessible dock cleaning install. And in honor of that, we have a proclamation recognizing July 26th to be National Americans with Disabilities Awareness Day in the town of Manlius. The proclamation declares July 26th to be National Americans with Disabilities Awareness Day in the town of Manlius as part of the nationwide celebration and commitments to the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. Whereas on July 26, 1990, President George H.W. Bush signed into law the Americans with Disabilities Act to ensure the civil rights of people with disabilities. And whereas this important civil rights law prevents discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of public life, including jobs, schools, transportation, and all public and private places that are open to the general public. And whereas the ADA has expanded opportunities for people with disabilities by reducing barriers and changing perceptions and increasing full participation in community life. And whereas the full promise of the ADA to ensure people with disabilities have the same rights and opportunities as everyone else will only be reached if we remain committed to continue our efforts to fully implement the ADA. And whereas the town of Manlius recognizes the essential contributions of individuals with disabilities and that passing of the ADA only started the work to support individuals with disabilities in our community. And whereas the town of Manlius acknowledges there is still much work that needs to be done, it is reaffirming the principles of equality and inclusion and recommitting our efforts to reach full ADA compliance. And whereas Disability Pride Month occurs in the United States every July to commemorate the passing of the landmark Americans with Disabilities Act. And whereas on the 33rd anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the town of Manlius celebrates and recognizes the progress that has been made in the installation and opening of the first fully accessible boat launch on the old Erie Canal State Historic Park at Poolsbrook. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Manlius proclaims July 26, 2023 to be National Americans with Disabilities Awareness Day as we strive to further advance equity, dignity, access, and inclusion. So I was going to make a motion to, I would like to make a motion to adopt this proclamation.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, so next up, we have both public hearings still open for the overall Skyridge Water District project. We've got 2 of those active right now. We're looking at the improvement project in the existing water district as well as the district extension number 1. So we've got those public hearings open. We went through seeker last time, and so I
So as you remember, we went to part 2 of secret the last board meeting. Based on the answers to the questions from that night, I have prepared a resolution. Issuing a negative declaration. I do want to recognize that we did get some questions or concerns about parts of part 1 from a resident. I have reviewed those, and most of them have to do with construction component of this, how that would affect environmental impacts. I do want to note that one of the secret type 2 action recognizes that a extension of utility distribution facilities, including gas, electric, telephone, cable, water, and sewer connections to vendor services in a subdivision, or in connection with the house and secret is really a part. It's a type 2 action doesn't fit precisely to that, but of course, the type 2 action means that by its very nature, it's not as you know, it's the road will be. The other issue had to deal with central state that we know, and it's impacting on wetland. We don't have any designated wetlands on this property as far as I can tell. And I don't think there's no designated wetlands for your research on this, right? No. Okay. So the impact on that wetland, it's something that would have to ultimately be decided by PDC if there wasn't. So I don't think that concerns that have been raised since we went through the process, and since been provided with that, something that changes secret determination that this is not necessary. I just want to put that out. So we have a resolution that's been prepared, so we can move that resolution if somebody is willing to do that.
So we have a motion to issue a negative declaration for secret purposes pursuant to the resolution prepared by the attorney for the town. We have a Skyridge Water District 202 project.
I can't hear you.
Maybe.
Okay, we will project.
Thank you.
Your motion to issue a negative declaration for secret purposes pursuant to the resolution prepared by the attorney for the town in the matter of the Sky Ridge Water District 202B project and the Sky Ridge Water District Extension number 1.
Second. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So, we still have public hearings open, so we'll first start off. If there's any comments on the water district improvement project, so this is the project but in relation to the existing Sky Ridge Water District. So if there's any public comments, people can feel free to come on up, and maybe a show of hands, if anyone's got a comment to share. What's that?
People who say yes, no.
Yeah, so come on up. And then if there is anybody in, joining us via Zoom, please use the raise hand function and we will push it next to them.
Hi, my name is Mary Karpinski. I live at 8300 Salt Springs Road, which is about a mile from the road intersection with North Eagle Village Road. One of the property lines on our at our home is a 300-foot stone wall, which is about 3 feet high. We believe this historic wall was built in the 1800s by local farmers to delineate parameters in their fields. Similar walls can be found throughout the Salt Springs Road area, some near the road and others further back in the fields. One of these stone walls is across the street from our home. Part of that section of the wall is just a few feet away from the edge of the road. As we understand it, the excavation of the pipeline would run on that side of the street, which also has mature trees close to the edge of the road. In fact, I have a photo of the site. that I would love to share. Let me do that, pass that down. At the last public hearing, we invited town councilors to tour this area to see for yourselves how our neighborhood would be impacted by this project. It is really something that you need to see yourselves, since it's not described in the Barton and LaJudas report. Unfortunately, no one has taken this up on the offer. This morning, I emailed a list of questions to each of you, which I and 19 of my Salt Springs Road neighbors submitted to you on July 10. To date, none of our questions have been answered. These questions included: why did the project costs go from $9.2 million in 2021 to $13 million now? In the construction zone, there are homes with wells that are close to the road. If wells are damaged by blasting to fracture rock, who will be responsible for the repair and replacement? The wall I described is on the property owned by the Kinsella Quarry. Have there been discussions with Tom Kinsella about the proposal? If so, what options and issues have been discussed? Because we have not received answers to our questions, we respectfully request that this public hearing remain open and that the town council delay taking further actions related to this project, including the bonding resolution and the approval of the MOU. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, looks like we've got somebody over Zoom.
Good evening. My name is Erin Trojan. I reside at 8789 Horseshoe Lane, Chittenango, town of Manlius. I'm here on behalf of the Skyridge Water District. We surveyed each residence in the water district, and the unanimous decision was that we want the town board to pursue funding to construct a new water main and related improvements to deliver municipal water to our district and clear path for veterans, pursuant to the resolution introduced at the board's meeting on June 28th. We have collected signatures in support of the project from each resident and have submitted those to the board. As you are all aware, the condition of our current system is beyond the end of its life expectancy, and we have been petitioning the board for assistance for over 15 years. We feel that this is possibly our last chance to make municipal water happen and implore the board to make this a priority. We understand there will be an update later this year on potential costs to each residence after funding applications are returned, and eagerly look forward to that discussion. I would also like to mention that we understand a lot of people along the proposed path of the utility corridor have a lot of interest and are, confused perhaps a little bit and concerned about how this might impact them. And, I would hope that all of those items would be further sussed out as Barton LaJudas takes this project through the more detailed stages of the project development, and that a lot of these things would be resolved at that time. So thank you for your attention to this matter.
Thank you. Anyone else here in person with a comment? Let's go to Rear.
Hello, my name is John Kyan. I live at 8236 Salt Springs Road. And I just have a couple questions. And these are asked as a 100% disabled veteran myself. And going through Madison County's tax records, New York State site, and finding the restaurant tax status associated with Clear Path is under miscellaneous.com SRV with a 2023 full market value of $643,000. They pay no property taxes on 15.79 acres. However, the golf course, which is 100 acres and has a full market value of $300,000, pays $3,400 and change. The 2024 assessed value of the property in town of Manlius owned by this LLC is $1,066,000. The owners have been tax exempt since 2011. So with that said, I'm curious as to why Clear Path for Veterans, the 501c3, the land is owned by Clear Path at Skyridge LLC, and Clear Path, the 501c3, reports expenses for occupancy. Tax records show the assessed value of the property and buildings is $1 million and is tax exempt. Yet the LLC pays taxes in the town of Sullivan and the adjacent property. Since the property in Manlius is not owned by the nonprofit, why is it tax exempt?
So we did go to the assessor's department and ask, and they have the paperwork I don't know the exacts of it, but they,
It's a use variance, so even though the owner is not clear path for veteran, the user is clear path for veteran, and that's one of the categories in the tax exemption, and that was the one that they submitted, and the assessor agreed with that, so because it's being used by clear path, it was still taxed.
So even though they're renting it and could be evicted from the site at any point in time, we're gonna generally
If the
blanket.
use were to change, the taxable status would also
Okay.
change.
So my follow-on question to that is why is the town in such a rush to dump $13 million in to support a project that in living in that area I drive past regularly? I hardly ever see any veterans there. When there are, there's a handful. I'm curious as to why Manlius feels such a great responsibility to this and is such a vested interest in something up there that has obviously massive development potential. When, again, I say this as a veteran myself, having served all over the world. I personally think a project like this would be much better suited in close proximity to where there's an actual base. With a high percentile of veterans in the population, like perhaps up in Watertown. Where we have the most deployed unit in American history up there, 10th Mountain. There's hardly any veterans up there.
It's not just for clear path, it's also for the 29 homes on Horseshoe Lane that do not have their water quality right there. And without clear path for veterans, it would probably be even more infeasible for their homes to get water, because clear path for veterans is also bringing money to the table to assist with those residents getting water.
Okay, all I'm getting at is there's a lot more economical manners to get water to 29 homes than spending $13 million on it. Be a new wells, cistern, bring in water from the other side, etc. And it just seems shady when we keep pushing out questions to you guys. They remain unanswered for weeks. And there's new line items added to these agenda right before close of business, a night or day or two before the meeting consistently. That's a problem. It lacks transparency.
any other comments?
Hi, my name is Kimberly Edgar. I live at 1233 Salt Springs Road. So I'm technically in the town of Sullivan. My first question is the $800,000 from Onondaga County. Where is that coming from? Is it Onondaga County or is it Aqua?
No, it's Onondaga County,
And who's the contact for that?
the legislator, Mark Wilson.
Mark Wilson?
Wilson.
Wilson, okay. Because the comptroller's office where I work is not aware of that. Okay, and the $2 million that Al Serpy promised, do you have that in writing? You have documentation of all that.
The assembly member Sturkey money is through the dormitory authority of the city.
Okay. And why was when the proposal was put back out, it wasn't updated about Sleepy Hollow?
It was.
Sleepy Hollow is complete. So why was it even mentioned again in the
Because
proposal?
the 8-inch water main that was brought up the hill from near the cemetery, from the booster pump station. And it drops down Sleepy Hollow is where the connection point will be described it before.
So it didn't.
Right, well, so you're addressing the board here.
Right, okay. So I'm just wondering why it was even brought up when that project was completed, so it wasn't really
Because we're gonna
necessary.
tie into.
It will tie into it. And how much money has the town of Sullivan been putting into this over the years that the taxpayers had to pay for because the project has never moved forward?
Generally, taxpayers are not paying for it, the residents of the district are paying for it.
But the last time around in 21, there was significant costs to the town of Sullivan that the taxpayers had to pay for.
I have to ask them, I don't know what they.
I did ask them, and at the time, they said that they were going to recoup it from the project. Well, the project never moved forward, so then it had to be absorbed by the taxpayers. And why was the town of Sullivan allowed to bring their crew into the town of Manlius to drill, to do a test to install a driveway in a cornfield? Why was that allowed?
That we would have to look
It's
at.
a collaborative arrangement, you're doing this together.
But we actually reimbursed the town of Sullivan, so it was a collaborative arrangement, the reimbursement should have been for the town of Manlius, correct, for the driveway installation?
I don't know. the answer.
Yeah, I can't speak to the specifics of that.
And to his point about lack of veterans, I'm over there every single day. He's absolutely right. They have some days, there's some people there, but most of the time there isn't. There was a homeless veteran living there with his dog Loki, and obviously no one was providing him with any support. There is a house that somebody financed from the federal government that dogs live in, and no one is there to take care of those dogs from 8 o'clock at night until it's 6 o'clock in the morning. That is not acceptable. They're young dogs. Somebody should be living in that house to take care of the dogs.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
My name is Rick Panowski. I live at 1237 Salt Spring Road, me and my wife Mary, and we just moved here in October, so I know nothing about what's going on. But
Thank you
What
for
I-
being engaged.
well, what I do know is I wasn't notified. So this directly affects our property, and we were never given notice
How does it affect your property?
because we we're neighbors. We're right up, Clear Path owns the property right behind us, or whoever owns it, and the ridge.
So because the bike's gonna run in front of your house, that is why you're in.
I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I know that I wasn't notified what's gonna
So
happen,
we, okay,
what could potentially happen. So
Yeah.
I don't, and I know there's people in the neighborhood, others that are unaware as well. So I just think that if there's gonna be a hearing, that the people that are gonna be affected by it should know about it.
We're not trying to give you blank stares. What we're doing is taking your questions, and then once the public hearing closes, we'll answer
Okay,
things.
well, my question is,
Yeah.
why weren't we notified? Is there an answer?
So did you hear just now when I said that? We have to answer you after, we will coalesce and respond to things after the public hearing.
Oh, okay, so
Today,
you'll tell me later.
In just a moment.
Okay, got it, thanks.
Thank you.
it looks like we've got somebody on Zoom. Just a show of hands, any other comments from here in the room? Okay.
So we just.
Am I on? This is Joe Messinio. Okay. I know that Aqua paid the initial expense for Bartlett Judas's report on this endeavor, but since then, there's been a lot of money spent by attorneys to draft bond resolutions. There's been ongoing work. The last time we went through this, there was $40,000 in expenses that were unbudgeted and paid for by the general fund of the town. Never did get it reassigned to the water district, which didn't get created. So my question is, who's paying all these expenses right now? Because there's a lot of money being spent right now as we speak.
So the expenses incurred through this process, if the larger project does not go through, would be taken care of by the district that we are doing the work on behalf of.
Okay, that's good, as it should be, but I guess that begs the question, why did the last time they did not pay it when it was spent on their behalf and the town paid it? So we're gonna change the mode of operation here all of a sudden?
So, yeah. We will charge the district.
Okay, so all the expenses that we're incurring will be charged to the district, whether it forms or not, correct?
Because
Okay.
the first district already,
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further questions, I look for a motion to close the public hearing on the Skyridge Water District Improvement Project.
I make a motion to close the hearing, East Ridge extension.
I'll second, wait.
District
This
Improvement.
was approved, sorry.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, and then any comments on the Skyridge Water District Extension number 1?
I read the revised map plan and report for the Sky Ridge Water District Extension Number 1. Recalled the classic fairy tale, The Emperor's New Clothes. It's a story of a proud leader who was scammed by clever entrepreneurs to spend money for nothing. The townspeople stood by silently as he strutted naked through the streets. A child in the crowd said the obvious: the man has no clothes. The Sky Ridge Water District proposal is being pushed forward with assumptions about how the project will be paid for. On June 14th, the revised plan was presented to the town councilor. Town councilors were persuaded that they needed to act immediately to designate the town of Manlius as lead agency for the $13.7 million proposal to secure speculative funding. Assumed funding includes $2 million from the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, $800,000 from the Onondaga County Legislature, a targeted grant of $5 million for water infrastructure, a subsidized loan from the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation, and $5.5 million from unidentified grant sources. You can take a look at the map plan and see page 12 for those figures. Why would state and county tax dollars be expended to provide water to 29 homes in a suburban subdivision, or to ClearPath at Skyridge LLC that is affiliated with a private nonprofit agency? How does this project have any benefit for the town of Manlius? Why is the town board serving as lead agency? According to table 7.1, see map plan, page 9, the Manlius Skyridge Water District owners of 29 properties will be responsible for paying $12 million of the project cost, while the ClearPath at Skyridge LLC extension and Manlius owners of a 57-acre tax-exempt parcel with a 2023 assessment value of $1,066 will pay $632. The LLC holdings in the town of Sullivan that have 120 acres zoned for medium density development will pay a small amount too. Does this make sense? Is the town council a mark for clever entrepreneurs?
Thank you. Any other comments?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Flaherty, the president and CEO of ClearPath for Veterans. 2 weeks ago, I joined our neighbors in asking for your continued support of the Sky Ridge Water District. I do so again today as you vote to move this initiative forward. I have heard this project described as being a town issue and not a veterans issue. But for me and all of us at ClearPath, it is a both and, not an either or. This project will enable us to provide continued and growing support for our fellow veterans at a time when the need is great and only becoming greater. There is no higher honor for me personally than to lead an organization dedicated to enhancing the lives of those who serve and have served to defend this nation and our democratic ideal. I also know many town residents share in that honor and are proud to have ClearPath as a member of this community. As you well know, ClearPath has been serving thousands of military veterans and their families since 2011. Our ability to serve even more is now predicated on your support in this initiative. Our neighbors in the Sky Ridge Water District have been seeking access to clean water for years, something I consider a fundamental right. All 29 property owners signed on to a letter indicating their support of this project and their willingness to take on the burdens associated with it. We at ClearPath stand with these neighbors to take on our share of those burdens as well. As I mentioned 2 weeks ago, if more than 27 years on active duty taught me anything, it is that rarely, if ever, will a decision be without risk. For this project, we each see that risk differently, so let me leave you with this thought. The vote this evening only begins the journey. Risk remains, not the least of which being the remaining funds necessary to complete the project. I commit ClearPath support and political capital to partner with you to help secure the necessary funding. True, we cannot remove all risk. But together, we can mitigate those risks by simply pursuing this project both and not either or. That is, as both the town of Manlius and Clear Path for Veterans, for the benefit of both our neighbors in the Sky Ridge Water District and the veterans and families we serve. I thank each of you for saying yes to this ideal we call democracy and ask that you vote in support of this project tonight. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay.
I'd like to say something. My name is Donna. My name is Donna Edgar, and I live on Salt Springs Road, right in front of
I'm
Clear.
sorry, Donna, did you say?
Donna,
Donna Edgar, and what's your address?
1233 Salt Springs Road. We went through this in 2017. And at that time, if the water thing went through, we were going to be paying $325 a water bill, annual water bill. Now, the 30-year total would be $21,000. I'm on a well. I've been there for 60 years. It gives me all the water I need. And I see no need for this. Thank you.
Hi, Bill Berrigan. Sorry to be redundant, but I'm at 8801 Salt Springs Road. And I spoke about this 2 weeks ago when we were out here, and I still have some confusion. Maybe you guys can clear it up. Everybody's concerned about putting a utility down the road. Happens every day, everywhere. It is what it is, right? The funding for one project versus the other project ends up being about the same amount of money. Give or take $1 million, but we all have it, right?
I don't understand that actually.
Well,
Can you clarify what you mean by that?
Yeah, option one and option two.
option one and option
Okay,
two.
okay.
And maybe people were a little confused because we first talked about option two, right? Which is internal, just in the Salt Springs Horseshoe neighborhood, right? It's all work internal and rebuilding the wells and the system and so on. And I think that number is 5 or 6 million. And the running the water down is the end result is about the same number, give or take, depending on what the bond is. But at the end of the day, and correct me if I'm wrong, the town of Manlius is responsible and on the hook for either project and creating the funds. It's their problem. It's our problem. And as somebody mentioned a couple weeks ago, we're a measly $8 million all combined, maybe. I don't know how that arithmetic happened, but at the end of the day, it's the town of Manlius's problem to solve. It's for us to pay, right? But it's for you guys to solve.
Not all the residents, yeah.
I mean,
Not all the
It's the
residents.
town's responsibility to figure out what to do.
Yes.
yeah, figure to come to some kind of conclusion. And you know, great that Clear Path is now there and willing to come along. But we've been at this for 15 years, long before they were there. And you know, it's sort of a tragedy, right? Yeah, exactly. You know, I've talked to 3 or 4 different supervisors and boards. But it's, you know, sort of a tragedy now that the project has gone from 2 or 3 million to 13 million. And 15 years of trying to get some kind of solution to this. So hopefully you guys are in and we can get somewhere. Thanks.
I know we have someone from Zoom.
Yes.
Just to show of hands, anyone else here in the audience?
And then we have another right after.
Okay.
Joe.
Okay, you ready? All set?
Yep, we got you.
I agree with Mr. Berrigan. I fully support helping Horseshoe Lane fix the problem with option one. The egregious amount of money necessary for this $13.7 million project is not a responsibility of the town. Clear Path for Veterans is offering their clout. Maybe they should offer some of their money. Their clout is not really worth a whole lot of anything here. It's not a veterans issue, and I wish other veterans would speak up and say that's the case. If they're serving most of upstate New York, how is it the responsibility of the town of Manlius to support that? That is a state or a federal issue, or they should raise funds to do it. There's a very simple solution for 2.8 million, and arguably that's even a little bit high that we have on the table. But everybody just keeps pushing that one aside because Mr. Knutson said, oh, that one might not work. I'm not quite sure why it wouldn't work. It works just fine now. An addition of a tank and another well is not a big reach. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll do the next person on Zoom. Just remind the audience, happy to say it again, we do have new audio equipment, looks the same, it's much better, and we do have a mic on that podium, so just any crosstalk, we keep that to a medium, give it to a minimum, to make sure that the video that we're producing tonight, is the best quality for everybody who needs this. Okay, Janice, we're looking for you to unmic or unmute. Can you prompt her? Okay, so we'll just put a hold on Janice and we'll get another comment here.
Hi.
Oh, just give us 1 second, Janice. We're gonna have somebody else share their comment.
Oh, no, no problem. I thought you called my name. I have nothing to say.
Does she want
Thanks.
it? 8371 Salt Springs Road, Steve Benson. I would like to, I spent a good deal of time going through what seems to be a fairly well-built climate action plan until I got to a point which directly took me to what's happening on Salt Springs Road, which is the future land use issue. Tied clearly in a big green box on the side to Micron. Okay, and that 50,000 jobs that are coming in here in the next 10 years. And the proximity of this town to Clay. If you think this is about the vets, it isn't. And I don't disparage the vets. I love the vets. I am a vet. But I don't like to see them paraded and used ineffectively or I just don't like to see that. But it's clear from the climate action plan that the implications of this influx of people into Manlius that we assume is going to occur.
You mean the
Isn't it?
comprehensive plan?
The comprehensive climate action plan that was put up a couple
Okay,
a week.
it's in the comprehensive plan, not the climate action. I just wanted, I didn't remember I was putting my gun in my hat, so thank you.
So,
There are two plans and they do connect.
so it's the comprehensive plan. And if you look at it, it's clearly connected. The kind of developmental issues that go along with this main that's going up Salt Springs Road, and probably additional loops and so forth. So this is not about the vets. And this is really not about Horseshoe Lane, which does need a fix.
Thank you. Any other comments?
All right.
Last call for comments from the room.
Okay,
We can hear
thank you. Just a word about Clear Path. I live at 1228 Salt Springs Road. And Clear Path professes to serve lots of veterans, which they may. I believe that they probably do a lot of good. However, they have not necessarily been good neighbors unless it is to their advantage. There are a lot of people that come there for the free lunch on Wednesdays. And there are a lot of motorcycles that like to blow their pipes when they leave Clear Path. It's not necessarily, this is to their advantage, so they're being very friendly to the people on Horseshoe. But that's the only time when they are good neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. No further comments? Okay. I'll look for a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So, I have been, neck deep in this project, for a few months now, and so I've got questions that we were delivered. Want to answer some of them. A lot of those questions were answered in the last public hearing and back and forth with our various guests.
Mr. Superintendent, I just wanted to come say, something I noticed that I do want to resolve is that I see that you're saying there was a request to have a written response and it named the people who wanted the response. We did not do that, but every single answer to the question, to the questions that are here, will be provided, either have been in the last public meeting or through this course of conversation or in the material that we've shared. I just read through them all and I can confirm that. That's
So, just gonna start answering questions. If you are concerned about your own personal well and cost to connect, unless you live in the Sky Ridge Water District that exists right now, with 29 properties, or you live on the Clear Path and Sky Ridge LLC parcel, you will not have any costs associated with you. We're not gonna touch your well. We're not gonna tell you have to connect. Actually, you're not allowed to connect because that water is not accessible to you until you are in a water district. So just to clear that up, we are not anybody, any of the residents that will be essentially given access to a new source of water have signed a letter saying they support this project.
And I asked a question regarding this. You said that it wouldn't affect us if we're outside that water district.
Yeah, we're not gonna, you're not gonna have
Bring
to.
the water down to Fairfax, right? What stops Madison County from hooking up to that same water and taking it past our house?
So the project itself is, the option we are looking at is, we've got an issue now where there's not water, dead ends on both ends. And with all the engineers and Aqua, and everybody that's taking a look at this, there is a substantial public benefit to a loop system. It is much easier to maintain, it's much better to the end user. And so our own engineer took a look at the plan. There is a significant benefit long-term for the Sky Ridge residents, for the Clear Path residents, for the general public. If people in the future decide that they do want access to municipal water, that would be a process that people would go through. They would have to form a water district. You know that is a very, very complicated and long and drawn out process. So we are, and again, I think another thing to just kind of wrap around this is, one of the things that we've got on the agenda tonight is a memorandum of understanding. Signing onto that is going to be the town of Manlius, the town of Sullivan, Clear Path for veterans, and Aqua. Okay,
Specifically, which Clear Path, specifically which legal entity is it?
so I did answer your question. That's it. Thank you. We're not, no more comments. I apologize for breaking my own rule. So Clear Path for Veterans is signing onto that MOU. So when we talk about who is paying their fair share, okay, like we've said, we've got a bond resolution here for almost $13.7 million. The intention is not to borrow $13.7 million and have Sky Ridge and Clear Path pay that back. They already have $2.8 million outlined as the earmark for this project. Again, the sum total of what we are trying to accomplish now is, at the end of the day, make it so that a WIA application can be submitted to find out if a third party who looks at this project says, this is a good project, it's worth giving you $5 million to fund it. The question, the merit of the project is gonna be decided by the folks who oversee the WIA grants. If they decide that that is a good use of the money, That's their responsibility. We're gonna receive that money and we're gonna go look for more money. You read through the MOU, there is a commitment from both the town of Sullivan, Clear Path for Veterans, to help with that funding. Clear Path has already said they're gonna do their best to find any funding we can that is appropriate for the project, that is made by other municipalities, the government, the state government, the federal government, the counties, whoever makes those decisions. Will be making those decisions on their own report in the future to fund this project or not. And to be clear, if we do not find that funding, if the town of Manlius and our signed partners do not find that funding, this project doesn't happen. So there's a whole slew of other agencies that are gonna be looking at this project and determining, as they are appointed to, elected to, however that is organized. And they're gonna be deciding if this project has merit. So to act as if we are the final arbiters, even if we vote yes on everything tonight, Town of Sullivan's gotta do the same. Aqua's gotta sign the MOU, Clear Path has to sign the MOU. And the MOU, at the end of the day, is. Sorry, Tim. It's kind of a pinky promise that we're going to work together real hard and eventually sign a much more official intermunicipal agreement. That's gonna tell everybody how things should be paid for, who's paying for what, all those things. Again, this is an exploratory process, and at least I'm speaking for myself right now. What I know is I spent 2.5 hours with the Horseshoe Lane residents. I answered all their questions, and I was honest with them. They said, who makes this final determination? It's the town board, your elected officials. And they said, oh, you said affordable 5 times, what does that mean? And I said, it's up to you, because if this board is the one making that determination, we're gonna come back to you, we're gonna tell you, we found all the funding, this is what it costs. And you folks, the folks who are responsible to pay for this project, are gonna make the final determination as to whether or not they wanna pay for the project. So when it comes to motives, questions about why this project is happening, before I was born, this water district was formed. That was a mistake. We are paying for that mistake that was made at some point, because now the town has a responsibility to ensure these residents in the water district have access to clean water. It's our responsibility. I didn't make that decision. I would love to say, great, moving away, we're gonna move away from this project. It is this town's responsibility, whoever sits in these chairs, it is this town's responsibility to get those people water. I wish we had solved this problem before I even graduated college, but we did it. And then we did it again, we did it again, we did it again, we did it again. This is the last shot these folks have for access to municipal water. Our own engineer has confirmed, bringing it up from that way, bringing it up from that way, not feasible. It's gonna be expensive, long term, it's gonna be a very expensive process.
Gravity.
This is the most feasible, gravity wise, cost wise, and long term health of the system. Okay, so I can understand there's confusion, I can understand why everything's being rushed. But at the end of the day, we, this town, have a responsibility to pursue what we have been asked for by these residents of this district. We met with them, we gave them as much information as we could, and they told us exactly what they wanted to do. They're the ones that are on the hook for paying the bill. And so they're the ones that are gonna make this decision. So, looking at anything else, any other questions people feel they need to answer?
I did actually go drive along Salt Springs Road and look at the area several times. I wish I had contacted you and go on a guided tour of it, but I do want everyone to know that I did go around the area. And I did also notice 2 fire hydrants on Horseshoe Lane, so I'm not quite clear on the whole fire protection angle everyone keeps trying to push. Because there are 2 fire hydrants on Horseshoe Lane and they are in services. If they weren't, there would be out of service things on them.
There's an answer.
So, but I'm not the water part of it, but I'm just saying everyone keeps trying to push the fire protection angle. I don't know if it's a scare tactic from the engineer's side of it, but there's fire protection provided there. So I did go around the area and check it out all along Salt Springs Road, the Scarpinski like you're talking. And I did check out, and I did see those stone fences and everything. I just did not go into a guided tour. So I am familiar with the area. I don't think that we're doing this blindly.
Could Concom PNL explain more about the fire protection element?
Maybe the residents can explain it, but there's
Can you mind
30,000 gallon water storage tank. That's there, that's relatively low, and it's the height and volume of that tank that is designed to provide fire protection for a certain amount of hours, at a certain flow rate. minimally 500 gallons a minute for a house. That either that tank has the elevation nor the storage to meet current fire flow demands for residential structure. I don't know if the residents know any more about the hydrants that are there, what they're used, or they may.
I'm Barb Wilson. I live across. No,
I
You
appreciate the.
shoot.
Can I say that,
I have an answer.
I bristle at the suggestion from folks who do not live in the homes that can tell us about what their water quality is and what their water situation is.
And we should just share the picture.
Well, I bristle at it.
And we've seen multiple photos of multiple residents showing quality of the water.
Yeah, and they stay in touch with us, and then you have the facts of the matter of the actual system which have been studied, so I want to say that. I also want you to know that I had a long conversation with the resident of Salt Springs about lots of things, but we talked about mature trees. I'm the co-chair of the tree commission. I care about disruption to trees and stone walls too, but I am absolutely willing to make the trade-off of not pursuing this project and working on the way to preserve as many trees as is possible versus not attempting to get this done because of preservation of some trees in front of the, in the right of way, for a project. And I think it's a reasonable compromise. It's not a fun compromise, but it's a reasonable compromise. And, I will, if we get to the point, should we be so lucky to get to the point where we have all the funding and are able to move forward, from a tree commission perspective, we'll spend time to make sure I'm advocating for the most attention paid to the solution there. So giggling is okay, but it's true. I care about trees too.
Yeah, ma'am, I'm very familiar with that stretch of road. I've traveled many times both on foot, on bicycle, almost every other day. I'm very familiar with that stretch of Salt Springs Road. And I do understand, I mean, we're discussing a number of aspects of people's concerns about this project. Cost is here, the bonding resolution here. But I am deeply sympathetic about the disruption project that this size will have on the licensed property. And personally, I have recently had my own private property eviscerated by a public utility. I lost mature trees. I had to sit and wrestle with the fact that this is beyond my personal aesthetic desires and that there's a greater public good here, but I have to simply make this compromise in my own life with. The property restoration is underway. I probably won't see anything like I used to have on my property for a number of years, but I just want to say I deeply sympathize because I am familiar with the stretch of road and I do know that there will be destruction and it will be restored as is required for a project to this site. But it won't be the same for a period of time, and there's some heartache with that. And I just wanted to make sure to share that with you, that we didn't, I personally did not ignore your questions or your, because I had to really become familiar with the other ancillary effects around this project. I understand. Not that helps you, but I want you to understand that.
Exactly, it's very expensive, it's very scary, it's very upsetting to see property having to be destroyed. And the concerns behind it, but the bottom line is, even taking that out of it, there are 29 homes that do not have access to clean water all the time, and they should, they're taxpayers. They pay the same taxes that everybody else does, they have a right to clean water when they need it on demand, just like everybody else does. And according to our town engineers who reviewed the proposals and did their own examination of everything, this $13.7 million option is the most feasible long-term based off of ongoing maintenance and operations. It can cost more if we look at the other options. And it's the best one and ongoing for the long term, and they need clean water. Unfortunately, as the supervisor mentioned, prior boards that it was never taken care of, and that's why we're at the point that we're at this stage, right? It's so expensive. We need clean water.
So that's in the public hearing disclosed. Okay.
Okay, any other comments from the board? There was one other question I wanted to respond to, the notification. When we have things, hearings, anything that needs to be notified, the town law, state law tells us exactly how to do that. We always follow those rules. For this project, because it is an improvement project to an existing water district, the district residents were notified, and that's why those folks were notified and no one else was. We try not to send out extra mail and get taxpayer dollars, so we try to follow the law when it comes to notifications.
I did want to add one comment, just the question about cost and it becoming so much more expensive since 2017. As I think a lot of us have noticed, inflation has been unreasonably high, historically high, since the start of the pandemic, and costs have increased notably from cereal at the grocery store, the box of Tostitos chips, like over $6 a lemon now, blows my mind every time I go to get guacamole. But that has affected the construction industry significantly more. So those costs have inflated considerably, and the longer this can is kicked down the road, the more expensive it will get. It will increase most likely than inflation will rise. So waiting is not going to get any of these costs cheaper, and that is the explanation for why the costs have increased as they have.
So I know we do have bond counsel on the line, if we did get him promoted. If anybody has questions, I know Tim and I have had a lot of conversations, with Mr. Stork, it's been a lumen.
I have two Jeff searches online, so I'll do the one with the.
Yeah, one of the better case.
Yeah.
But also, we had a number of long conversations, and the language that is now currently in the bond resolution has seen quite a few, edits and, justifications to essentially give the confidence that without additional funding, this bond resolution is there is no hope to execute this bond, without pretty significant levels of funding from outside agencies. So, I know that was something that was a big question with the board, and we have addressed quite a number of concerns. We'll give him a second to join us. So, just as a kind of summary of all this, we've got two resolutions before us for the projects themselves. So we have kind of reports. We do have the MOU that I was talking about before that needs to be adopted. And we do have that bond resolution for up to $13.693 million. There we go.
Can you guys hear me now? Okay.
Do you have anything to necessarily share with us? You're just looking to answer any questions the board may have.
I could, I could say that, we put these protections in, obviously that all these authorizations is subject to, all the grants. This bond resolution, the number one purpose is to help us get the WIA grant. Unfortunately, the state puts a deadline on WIA grants for the end of the month. So we wanted to make sure that this gets approved. Otherwise, you lose a shot at the WIA grant. But any questions, feel free.
So one of the major questions was how does this affect the overall credit rating? So if you could just address that.
I didn't hear what you had to say.
How does this bond resolution affect the overall credit rating for the town? And if we were to bond the project?
Sure. So it doesn't affect the credit rating at all because you haven't borrowed against it yet. It's just an authorization. There's no a bond resolution is not a requirement to to issue. The other thing is that it's most likely to be exempt from your debt limit. So it won't, because it's, a water or sewer project. So it won't really affect your outstanding debt. And the third thing is obviously it's a special district. So it's not subject to, it's, the town is, the first bite of the apple is the assessments against the property. So it shouldn't affect your credit rating at all until you go out to borrow. And even then, since it's an EFC type deal, it shouldn't have any real effect.
See any questions from the board? Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate all the work you've done.
Sure. And anybody, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, this is good. Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you, thanks.
Sir, next, anything you want to go over?
I have nothing. I did the bond or the resolutions in terms of the 202 minor and the extension. Memorandum of understanding was drafted. I echo what you said, which is that the memorandum of understanding is simply that, it's an understanding at this point. But it's contemplated that an actual intermunicipal agreement under 119 of general municipal law will be entered between the town of Sullivan and the town of Manlius, which will more detail their responsibilities for primarily future development. So, and how that's going to be how that's going to affect the payments, the fees that are going to be paid for this project by those who live within the district. Thank you.
Any further conversation or questions from the board? Not to have
So I make a comment with reference to the change documents being uploaded to the agenda at various points over the week. I think it's important for the public to understand that the counselors see the document in the week before the meeting and have questions and concerns and answers, and we talk to attorneys and come back and forth, and then it's a revision made. So what you're seeing is government working, is that people read the thing, they had a question, they talked to the attorney, they talked to each other, they did something, and then they made it, they changed the word here or the paragraph there or whatever. So that's why things get re-entered to the agenda, is because we are actually doing our job and reading them and asking questions about it. So sometimes the paragraph does change because we have dialogue around, do we really mean that? And should we say it the other way? And or should we add more about that? And then that happens before we actually vote. So that's why those changes occur during the week that the agenda.
We've made Sarah work, Supervisor Walter worked so hard. She has gone back and forth between every single party every time and has been the keeper of this project. So thank you. Would everyone be okay if I turn the air conditioner back on?
Yes.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
I would like to make a motion to adopt the resolution of the town board pursuant to section 202B of town law determining that it is in the public interest to undertake certain improvements to the town's Skyridge Water District as outlined in the resolution prepared by the attorney for the town. So this is the existing water district known as Horseshoe Lane, but it's technically called Skyridge.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, carries. You see the hands? All of them. All of them.
Motion to adopt the resolution and the order for Skyridge Water District Extension number 1 as presented by the attorney for the town. I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Here's where the full message. Motion to adopt a memorandum of understanding for the Skyridge Water District Improvement Project between the town of Manlius, town of Sullivan, Onondaga County Water Authority. So, sorry, Onondaga County Water Authority is an authority. It's not Onondaga County. So it's an entity of its own, and its job is to manage water. And good that for veterans is presented.
Okay, all those in
Motion to adopt the town board authorizing the issue of $693,000 in series of the town to finance certain improvements to the town's Skyridge Water District prepared by bond council. And this specifies that we are getting other money that we are not borrowing from them. No, I don't want to second it.
So this bond road, which I call bond road, will require a 2/3 majority of
I'll second.
Okay. Any questions or further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Okay.
You have this closed on, right?
Okay. So. Moving on. We have the public hearing for the climate action plan. I don't think we have any, super or anything.
We do want to recognize the end of the is here again.
Thank you for joining us. So what we'll do, So basically, as we kind of do with the comprehensive plan, it's been out there, there's been opportunities to read it, just, do ask, cross out, taking outside of the hallway, thank you very much. This has been out there for folks to take a look at, we've had a couple presentations, so we are gonna be looking for comments on that plan. And we'll be moving through that, and I think, depending on how this conversation goes, we will probably maybe, answer some questions. Talk about possibly adjusting the plan based on comments, but, we're just looking for some feedback on the climate action plan, so.
I'd like to make a motion to put in a word very priority. I'd like to make the motion to waive the reading of the public credit. I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries.
I'd like to make a motion to open a public hearing for the climate action plan. Okay.
All those in favor? Aye.
I'm thinking. Sorry.
All those opposed? Motion carries. So, if you're in the Zoom audience, please use the raise hand function, anyone in the first row with a comment. And just as a reminder, next week, we're gonna go around twice for comments. Please try to limit yourself to about 3 minutes. I will turn my computer around again.
Yeah, the timer is going to turn around.
Do you have a hook
I was gonna say.
Listen, I'll go get it.
We know you.
My name is Peter Worth. I live at 113 Camet Lane. I'd like to lend my support to the climate action plan. My only criticism, if anything, is that the plan should be more aggressive in terms of reducing carbon emissions. I follow the issue of climate change. I'd just like to share a few things, and I would not expect people to know this. July 3rd, the average worldwide temperature for the Earth hit a record high. That record lasted 24 hours. It was broken on Tuesday. That record lasted 48 hours. It was broken on Thursday. The world is heating up. The impact of a warmer world is twofold. Simple physics. Warmer air holds more moisture, and warmer air dries things out. A few weeks ago, 8 inches of rain fell on West Point in a matter of hours. In Vermont, they had 2 100-year floods in a decade. And the capital of Montpelier was under a few feet of water. I've been going to the Adirondacks since the 70s. I'm a hiker and a camper, canoeist, and I passed through Long Lake numerous times. A torrential downpour about a week ago took out some roads, bridge was damaged, and streets were flooded. A few hours ago, I read an article on the fires in Canada, and I think we all experienced, the air quality issues. I mean, it was a little bit like out of science fiction movie to wake up and see skies that were like gray. I mean, I've never experienced anything like that in my life. In Canada, the boreal forest, 2.5 million acres have burned in the last few months, and it is early in the fire season. Put that in perspective. This is more land has burned in Canada in the last few months that's burned in 20 years. These are hundreds of fires. 800 is the ballpark figure. 400 of them are out of control, and they will burn throughout the summer. This is climate change at work. Catastrophic weather events are occurring now and will get worse till we start to reduce carbon emissions. And I'm really glad the younger people are here today because this is their future. In your hands, we have the future of that generation. I'm proud to be a resident in a town that is taking a leadership role dealing with climate change. Thank you.
My name is Bob DeForest. I'm a land developer and a home builder. And I built past president of the Home Builders Vermont Association of Central New York. Company's built over 600 homes in Central New York, about 50 in the town of Manlius. To me and a lot of my colleagues, housing affordability is a much greater problem than climate change. And I'm against this plan. And I'm against the state plan. I testified against the state plan at SUNY DSF, mainly for the cost, because the state plan doesn't have a practical implementation and lacks economic analysis for taxpayers, consumers, and businesses. This 2,100 square foot home, 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, that I build now all over something there, except in the town of Manlius, because land is too expensive. Lots are too expensive. The HVAC system for this house cost me $18,400. On January 1, 2026, I can't use natural gas in a new house. Cold climate heat pump system. Now, with a 60 amp car EV plug in the garage. That cost me $42,400 to heat that house and cool that house. That's a difference of $24,000 on a 2,100 square foot home. And that's what we're gonna be up against. Housing affordability is a problem. I can't make lots and I can't build homes people afford, and it's gonna get worse if we adopt plans like this. If the town adopts the New York State stretch code, the windows alone in this house are gonna cost $2,400 more. So I think that people need to understand, climate is important. We get it, but houses are expensive, and you gotta be able to house people, so you gotta bear that in mind when we're gonna adopt these plans. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Was there, I just asking for further clarification, like, were there specific parts of the plan that, because I'm trying to understand the difference between, like, your state's gonna make you do stretch code, like, thank you for that.
Well, number one, I can't use natural gas, 2026, right? So that's the main problem. An HVAC system is gonna cost me $42,000, and we're at $18,000.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's speaking mostly to the adoption of the stretch code.
Okay.
I'm talking about the whole plan. Banning natural gas is not a good idea, and adopting a stretch code for the town makes it very hard on the village, because the town of Onondaga does not have a stretch code. Town of Sullivan does not have a stretch code.
But you wouldn't be against, for example, helping to put out, helping to develop the EV charging station in.
I offer EV charging stations in all my houses,
Well, great.
right?
Okay, so.
People
for
buy
that,
it if they want.
I think John should ask, are you against the whole plan or certain parts?
I'm against the cost of
The cost of the home is,
basic.
yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
The other thing, one other thing, if I make a point, in the state plan. On page 136, the state plan. It proposes that multifamily construction. Has a Yeti, this is their words, a Yeti style room. For when the power goes out. The residents go down into that room and wait for the power to go back on. Okay, that's not the United States of America in 2023. That sounds like East Germany, 1985 to me. And that's in the state plan on page 136.
Guess I'll go next. Tom Wu, the current president of the Home Builders and Remodelers Association of Central New York. And Bob got me here tonight, but I've looked over your plan and it's pretty vague. It gives some goals and sets some parameters, and I got that. A couple of things. Don't lose the common sense. Don't lose the rational analysis of what's going on. It comes at us really fast, but if you talk about construction, you talk about energy loss, energy conservation, don't look at new homes, look at existing homes. 95% of all energy loss is to existing homes. We're building homes at the highest standard ever. We are R49 plus in the attic, R26 in the walls. Lower door touches, they don't get any better. I mean, everything, all that, T's are crossed, I's are dotted. So new homes are not the problem. As Bob said with the air source heat pumps, they're great. They're really great between temperatures of 20 degrees and 80 degrees. You go below 20 degrees, you go to total electric resistance heat. It is the most inefficient heat ever. It's basically a toaster, a big broiler element heating your home. So it's not a good example. There is an animal out there, which is called a natural gas backup air source heat pump. When you go below 20 degrees, you actually burn natural gas. We've pushed for it in Albany. We've tried to get that into the code as a backup. They said that they would give it to us in certain climate zones. We're in climate zone 5B here.
We don't know where that's going because they haven't identified who, if anybody gets it. Only thing we've gotten out of Albany is whole house backup generators that run on natural gas. The other side with practical, rational thought here. Fossil fuels are getting condemned. It's like fossil fuels are evil. They're not all the same. And when you look at them, give you a good example. Methane, a renewable resource. Everybody loves methane, 7 times more polluting than natural gas, but it's okay. That's hypocrisy. It really doesn't make any sense at all. Use common sense as you go forward. Oh, converting all your vehicles over to electric. Okay, makes sense. Maybe there's some money in there from the federal or the state, the initial cost of doing that. Keep in mind, battery life expectancy on an electric vehicle, typically 8 to 9 years on a standard, user. With a commercial or municipal user, they're saying 5 years, maybe. The cost of replacing those batteries, half the price of the vehicle itself. And then the other problem is, where are you going to dispose of all this stuff? And all the problems created in making the batteries in the first place. Electricity can do certain things, but it can't do everything. So don't wear blinders on the thing. It seems to me, I say that they're against combustion, they're against burning anything. And if that's the case, it's closes the door on hydrogen down the road, which is a non-polluting heat source, which heats actually hotter than natural gas. Our furnaces can't even handle it in today's technology. But basically, and the other thing is we adopt these little things like the converting the municipal fleet to electricity. I'd like to see a detailed cost analysis on that. Not just short term, but long term as well, because I question whether or not it is. And then for the DPW and some of the heavier equipment, where you really get into some complex questions, there are stuff out there. Joe from Tobin was just telling me there's actually a hydrogen one. They're very expensive and they're very high maintenance. So whatever. So we're for saving the environment, but keep the common sense, keep the practical application. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else here? There's a hand if you're here to make a comment on the climate action plan. Again, if you're trying to see a Zoom, please use the raise hand function.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ingrid McCurdy. I live at 5798 Pinwheel Circle in the Fremont Meadows neighborhood in the town of Manlius. 3 years ago, I spoke to this town board about EV vehicle infrastructure. As my capstone project as a Maxwell graduate student, I researched battery recycling, the cost of EVs, how batteries are repurposed after their 10-year lives, the fact that EVs cost $10,000 less than the cost of an internal combustion engine vehicle over the life of the car. My husband and I are EV owners. We own 1 hybrid and 1 fully electric. They're smoother, they're nicer to drive, they accelerate better. We have a level 2 station installed in our garage, and the prices continue to go down. So I traded in my Chevy Equinox. The new Equinox that's electric will be $500 more than the internal combustion engine, minus $7,500 in federal tax credits and $2,000 in a state rebate. You have a much less expensive car. So part of what is going to drive this is economics. People are going to want to spend less on their car. They're clean, they're nice to drive, and they're economical. So I think it's important for us to prepare for the fact that we are going to see increased numbers of EVs. So when I did my research, I ran the zip codes from the New York State registration database. And at that time, 218 electric vehicles or plug-in hybrids were registered to town residents. That number has tripled. So there are now 713 cars now in 3 years, just over 3 years. And that tripling has occurred at the county level and at the state level.
So despite the fact that the fossil fuel industry spends 37.5 billion with a B dollars to convince us that what we are seeing is not real, climate change is real, and people are taking note and making changes. I am a member of Sustainable Manlius. I was a member of the Climate Action Plan Committee and have done extensive research. We took comments from people at EarthFest. We took online comments. Videos were shared on social media. And so this has been a process of engaging the public and getting quite a bit of input. So I'm appreciative of the town board for being thoughtful and mindful of paying attention to climate change. My husband would be here tonight, but he's affected by the smoke, unfortunately, and has missed days of work. So it's important for us to pay attention to our air and our water. And thank you for doing this. My hope is that this would move away from a divisive partisan kind of issue. We're all neighbors, hopefully friends, we're community members, and we need to work together to solve this. It's very expensive to deal with a flood, increasing hurricanes. Florida can no longer get flood insurance. So all of that costs a lot more money than it does to change our light bulbs and to put in some infrastructure that has support backing it. So thank you.
Amy, did any of your research revolve on how much it costs to charge your vehicles?
It's gonna vary by car, so I can share personal experience. My husband's cost to commute from the town of Manlius to Rome for a year with gas was over $3,000. With our electric car, which he uses to commute, it costs about $750. So we see a substantial decrease in the amount that we're spending.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Any other comments?
This is from Brad Schwab.
Can you speak up?
Sure. So I do feel like that owl is pretty close. I am writing, so this is Brad Schwab. He submitted this comment and asked that I would read it on his behalf. I am writing to express my strong support for the implementation of the climate action plan proposed by Sustainable Manlius. As a concerned resident and someone personally committed to environmental sustainability, I believe that taking action on climate change is of utmost importance for the well-being of our planet and future generations. Climate change is a global concern that demands urgent attention at every level, and I'm proud to see Sustainable Manlius take a proactive stance in tackling the pressing issue. The Climate Action Plan outlines a comprehensive strategy that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions, promote renewable energy sources, enhance energy efficiency, and foster a resilient and sustainable community. By adopting this plan, we not only contribute to the larger global effort to mitigate climate change, but also pave the way for a cleaner, healthier, and more prosperous future for our community. Climate action plans don't just protect the environment, but also have potential economic advantages, such as creating new green jobs and fostering innovation in clean technologies. Moreover, by actively engaging citizens and local businesses in the implementation of the climate action plan, we can foster a sense of environmental responsibility and create a more cohesive and connected community. Together, we can build a legacy of environmental stewardship that will inspire future generations to continue working towards a sustainable and thriving world. I urge everyone present at tonight's meeting to support the implementation of the Climate Action Plan and take decisive steps towards a greener and more sustainable future. Let us all work together to preserve our planet's beauty, biodiversity, and natural resources for generations to come. Thank you for your attention to this crucial matter. I look forward to witnessing the positive impact of the Climate Action Plan in our community and beyond. Sincerely, Brad Schwab.
Thank you.
Any last comments? Anybody? Okay,
There was a comment email.
I believe it was one of you, 100% comments. And very long thing, so they have thanking for. Okay, any further comments? Okay.
I'll make a motion to close one of my. I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So. Just, I mean, I think, I know this is something, when I looked at the stretch code originally. Myself and code enforcement officer Tom Boyer just met with a number of the buildings. We were told very clearly what their opinion on the stretch code was. And we did end up having a very constructive conversation with a subset of those builders later on to have a better understanding of how these costs, they're very real costs. We're constantly talking about affordable housing and trying to get people in homes. And if, there are truths to how things get built, when you add those additional costs, are you defeating one of the goals while trying to meet another?
So it's interesting because we use the term affordable housing, but the house that was brought up as an example is even without the stretch code, it was probably out of reach for most Americans. I certainly consider it affordable housing, and the legal term in New York State for affordable housing have to be built, as Elizabeth is very well aware, William and Sarah, so probably the vast majority of it. It has to meet many criteria, including the stretch code. You have the stretch code, having to meet the stretch code is one of the, well, by all means, Liz, and then correct me.
Affordable housing definition is that you have to be more than 30% of your income for housing costs.
Okay, so the multifamily housing, like the units that you see, those are all required to meet the stretch code. So the
But I think the climate action plan is not the stretch code.
Yeah, I think that's the,
Yeah.
well, that's, I think a lot of that feedback, it's useful. And we set a lot of very lofty goals in that climate action plan. And I guess my question to the board is there any desire to sit back down with that plan and put something in there about that addresses some of the concerns we heard tonight? Or do we understand it to be that it is a prescription to meet certain goals in the future, and that through the implementation of the plan, we wouldn't want to be.
So I could answer that and say, I don't think we need to, here's why. We, just like the comprehensive plan, the climate action plan is laying out what's in front of us as that perfect Venn diagram. The things in, one realm that we're dealing with and another realm, and the things in the middle that are the sweet spot are low hanging fruit. Things that are wins, they make economic sense, they make long-term planning sense, they allow us to be in sync with other government bodies and all the rest of it, and so the people want. We're not, it's kind of wild that we are so boldly climate focused, because the truth is, we're doing those sensible, practical things as a community, and it's just not happening with much regularity across the county right now and in other towns like it should be. I honestly see this as a very practical, it does reference sort of state initiatives that are a lot more aggressive. And when I was hearing Tom Booth speak, I was thinking, oh, I wonder if he's talked to Al Sturpey about this, because, Al deals with this all the time, and, the lobbying is important for folks to get all those issues. But that is a state issue. There are aggressive targets and important targets. They're meant to push us. They're meant to push us and push industry forward to think about this to react. So I think we're doing what needs to happen, which is figuring out what works for us and using the climate action plan as a really important platform for dedicated work that we will take forward and figure out how fast we can go and not leave people behind.
Yeah, the plan is meant to set aggressive goal. That's what it's meant to do. Like we met extensively about what we wanted those goals to be, and there are several members of the subcommittee here this evening. So we just like for helping with this whole process. So it could very well be that we don't meet them all. Where it's not a mandate. It's not saying that we are this isn't a commitment to passing certain legislation. Like we're not committing to anything. What we're saying is this is a plan. In moving forward with taking climate action, to meet that goal that we set. This is what we would have to do. This is what these things look like. And we did acknowledge our own limitations with, for example, the highway department. These vehicles are very large. Right, Rob? Is that an accurate statement?
They're large.
Thank you. And so to convert them to electric would be well, it's just not possible, that technology doesn't exist yet, so we talked about what that was like, how do you plan for the future with the technology that doesn't exist today? So, we put that in there, we wrote that in there, like how as the technology advances, as we become more available, as we become more affordable. So to Mr. Booth's point, to the other gentleman who spoke, those are great points, they're more expensive, but they won't always be. And what was the year, Amanda, that we set for leaving these schools?
The short term was 2030 and long term 2050.
So I think that I would hope that by 2050, those windows in that technology is more than affordable, and I fully expect that it will be. So this is a long-term climate action plan to move the town forward towards meeting the state goals and the global goals. And so I don't see any reason why you would hold that process up to write into it short-term concerns, because those things are not relevant to the plan.
I don't know if it's allowed, but I just want
You are welcome to approach.
Yes,
We're really
hi.
proud of that little mic.
Thanks.
So this must be public hearing, why she's speaking as an author of the plan.
Yes. So I'm Amanda Mazzoni. I'm a principal planner at the Central New York Regional Planning and Development Board. I helped write the climate action plan. I just wanted to quickly address the stretch code issue. Just to say that what we put in the plan is not the town will adopt the stretch code. It was that the town will consider adopting the stretch code or similar future stretch codes, because the current stretch code is only applicable until the next general building code comes out, which is expected probably sometime this year, because the last one came out in 2020. So in that case, the current version of the stretch code won't exist anymore. There will maybe be a new version of the stretch code. That's kind of what we're not sure if there will be or not, or if it will just be the base code that will be required. But we made the language in the plan such that these actions are things for the town to consider in the future, not by adopting the plan, you must implement these things. So I just wanted to make that clear. And there was another comment before about heat pumps not functioning below 20 degrees, which was true maybe 15 years ago. But now they make cold climate air source heat pumps. I have one at my house. It definitely works very efficiently. It worked typically, the cold climate air source heat pumps work very efficiently down to -15 degrees. You know, maybe under 0 is when they start to switch over to that electric resistance heat, which is the less efficient, more expensive kind. But usually if you're just using it in central New York, we don't have a whole lot of -15 degrees, but we do have some. But you know, you're covered on those maybe 1 day a year, 2 days a year. But yeah, it's otherwise the cold climate air source heat pumps, if that's what you're installing versus traditional heat pumps that were more popular in the South that came up and weren't functioning well up here for the reason he mentioned. I just wanted to say there
So that
have
would-
been advances in
I
the
would think that
technology.
gas backup would not be necessary with its works efficiently with the new technology.
Yes, most people who have air source heat pumps now don't have a backup system, and it does have an internal, he mentioned internal electric resistance heating, which it does have if absolutely necessary. But again, that doesn't kick in until you're, you know, under 0 degrees, if it's a cold climate air source heat pump. So
Which is what we use.
which is what you would be buying in central New York, hopefully.
Is methane really 7 times more?
So I don't know the specific percent or multiplier, but it is, so methane and natural gas are basically the same thing. However, you think of methane as just released into the atmosphere, that is very, very polluting. The natural gas we think of as burned, and the combustion from the natural gas is less polluting than if it were just released into the atmosphere without being burned first. So I think that's what he's referring to there. Maybe it's 7 times, I don't know. Personally, I don't think of methane as like a renewable gas, like he mentioned. It's not something we included in the climate action plan. But that's, I guess, up for debate. So I just wanted to address those things, but thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Any further discussion? I would entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the climate action plan for the town of Manlius as outlined in the resolution presented. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Okay, plans, we've got a comprehensive plan. It is going through pretty extensive public hearings. We do have the draft plan that was included as well as the appendix. I know it was updated with a number of comments we received at the last public hearing.
So I do want to share with people that as a result of we had the public hearing before the steering committee, there was changes made. Then we had the public hearings here, changes were made. And then there was some dialogue amongst councilors and another couple of tweaks were made, small changes, but there were some changes. So I want people to know that the input we received during the public hearing was implemented in the plan, so there have been changes made to the plan as a result of public comments. And that the plan that is attached today to the agenda is the one that includes all of the recommended changes that. And so this is the one that we're voting on. If you have a copy from 2 or 3 weeks ago, there's going to be a few sentences there. So is there any questions for the board or any comments about the comments?
Really proud of it.
This is a commitment that we made in 2019 that we have now, well, almost followed through on, which is pretty incredible. Pretty awesome.
So do you want to do?
I will, I'll say that when I first met with Sarah, and I said, this is crazy, but I might be running for town board, never even, and I heard you talk about, needing a comprehensive plan, and I really feel passionately that I want to do that. Sarah did something that's kind of amazing. Even though she had been carrying the water on the idea and speaking of about a comprehensive plan for ages, when I came on board right away, she said she knew I didn't have a project yet. She knew I didn't have an anchor as a new legislative leader, and she was really gracious about sort of letting me run with it, even though she is a skilled project manager. And I knew well enough to say, could we please co-share this endeavor? Yeah, because we have complementary skills. And it has been such a pleasure to work with you. I've learned so much from you and I continue to learn a lot from you. And I really, really appreciate that we've had this opportunity to work together and to the steering committee. So I'll just read this quickly on behalf of Sarah and myself. And all the counselors who've been so involved, and all of our colleagues. Thank you. This was gigantic. And I can't believe we're in this moment, and all the part of it. On behalf of Sarah and myself, we're pleased to present this final draft, and we're pleased to get the move. We'll be voting tonight on the plan, and it's because of all of your work and steering committee members, the focus group leaders, the study group leaders, and everyone who participated, even by responding and participating. We appreciate it. We want to thank our partners at B&L. Ken's here tonight, so I will say thank you very much to B&L. They were our consulting partners, and Grace DeSantis, her colleague, and your colleague Keith Wall were wonderful to work with. We appreciate them. And Amanda Mazzoni just popped down, who aligned the climate action plan with our efforts and worked closely with Grace and Keith to make sure that we weren't doing things in a silo. Thank you for the many hours that all of you have given to the community and to benefit the future of the community for this project. We look forward to staying in touch, and we're going to share updates on implementation activities with all the members. The steering committee folks, they want to check in every year. We're going to kind of formalize that, figure that out. And we want their involvement, whether it's making public comments, asking questions, or leading initiatives. And this is a good reminder. Those experiences that these folks, all of us, but these folks who have been involved in this project in some way, they prepared themselves holistically to be excellent candidates for office or to serve on the planning board or zoning board of appeals. And I hope they will consider these opportunities. That is how we build great bench of new leaders in the town, people who are deeply steeped in what it takes to get things done. And so we had a cross section of people from all different perspectives and interests, and they should all carry forward and continue helping to lead the town. Thank you so much.
So I would like to make a motion to adopt the 2023 comprehensive plan for town of Manlius.
Hi, third.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, carried. We have one more report. Yes.
She's a vacation. I'll give you
Yeah. Okay, moving right along. Dr. Diana?
So due to an increase in registrations at our playground program at Plain Road, we have had to hire an additional recreational student. Great, yes, so I would like to make a motion to hire Taylor Cohen as a recreation attendant at Plain Road Playground at $15.75 per hour.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up.
So. As I gave spoken the home. I am. I'm moving my law practice scarcity, so if the town wants to use my legal services. Then that would transfer the engagement by this to the existing firm. I prepared a resolution to that. For that, if this board wants to do it.
Can I make this motion? I'd like to make a motion to retain Karen Beach, the LLC as the attorney for the town as outlined in the resolution printed.
I'll second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Thank you.
Start with this.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on, Councilor Bauer?
Yes.
All right.
So as everyone can see, and it is on our town website and also listed on the agenda, a petition for a permissive referendum was submitted in my office on July 14th to establish a ward system in the town of Manlius. And we did receive a subsequent objection on July 19th. I asked that this be added to the agenda because I wanted to kind of get this in front of the public so that they understood what was happening. This is a very complex process that is very much tied to our laws and then also case law. I thought it would be a very good opportunity for us to have a conversation, and our town attorney and I, who have spent countless hours together on this, and he's agreed to kind of answer some questions that I thought the public may have as well, to kind of get that out in the open. So Tim, I just have a couple things that we can talk about.
So she set you up.
I was expecting.
He has consented to this, so this is not.
I do think it's coincidence though that we did this right after we continued retaining her.
Right. So, first and foremost, I wondered if you could explain what the ward system is. And again, I appreciate you doing this because Tim will do this far better than I could.
So. While I have always explained to people, so they ask me if we have something involved. Initiative and referendum, the answer has always been no, in New York State, we don't have a process. Unlike California, which does have a process to initiate a proposition for the ballot. For people to vote on. Section 81 of town law actually does list several discrete types of things that either the town board or the public can pass petitions on, which will then require getting enough signatures would require a input to a vote of the people either at special election or at the general election. One of those listed things, again, is very discreet, there's not a lot of them, but one of them is to create a ward system. Ward It's unusual. Even though in Ottawa County, we do have 2 towns that have water systems. And we have a town of Solana, which I'm there. That's why. So, so a ward system is where you divide the town into various numbers of wards, depending on how many elected representatives you have. Some of Manlius, we have 6 town councils. So the town of Manlius will be divided up into 6 wards. And then 1 representative would represent that ward. One of the things, frankly, I have to do some research on, as we go forward, is the fact that under town statute, there are usually town boards that are made up of 4 councilors plus a supervisor. So there's usually town boards are 5 members. Somewhere in the past, I've been doing this 20 years on town now, so way before me, somewhere in the past, a proposition must have been adopted that created 6 councilors. So in our case, we're going to assume 6 wards in this proposition actually is successfully passes. The responsibility of drawing the ward boundaries would be up to the 2 commissioners in board of elections in the first instance. So they would go forward and they would try to create 6 boards in the town of Manlius that would have equal representation in each of those 4 or as practically as possible, have equal representation. So that's what a ward system is. And the people that live in that ward would be represented by 1 person. So that's what a ward system is.
So I think one of the other important things to acknowledge here is that town clerks in general have very few things that they get to decide on, if you will. So one of them being peddler permits, and the second being, I think, would be the acceptance of these petitions. And so there are chapters and chapters in this book called the Town Clerk Manual, which I use to do my job, that discuss how to do this. And I was hoping that you could provide a little bit of an overview of what my role is in this process, and then subsequently what the town board's role would be.
Sure.
Because the special elections not necessarily run by the Board of Elections, it would be run by us.
So over 815 signatures were submitted to the town clerk a couple of weeks ago. 2 which people who signed it with a heading of that they would want to create a ward system in the town of Manlius. You, under town law 81, you have to have 5% of the people who voted in the last gubernatorial election sign the petitions in order for it to qualify to be on the ballot. Either in a special election or in the general election. If it's more than 60 days and less than 75 days from the general election, biannual election, then it would go to the biannual election. This was submitted before 75 days, so it would require a special election. The clerk's responsibility is to review the signatures on the petition, count them up, make sure they meet the 5% of people who voted in the last gubernatorial election, and then determine whether or not those signatures were proper, and that the 4 corners of the document, the form of the document, meets the requirements for a nominating petition under an election. On the agenda, it says petition for permissive referendum. That's what the document says. That's not accurate. This is not a petition for a permissive referendum. This is a petition under section 81 for a mandatory proposition. There's a difference between a referendum and a proposition. The referendum is when you, get the signatures to, challenge an action of a role. That's a referendum. In other words, the board passes a local law that is subject to mandatory referendum, and you would have a right under Article 7 to pass petitions, and within 30 days, have enough signatures, and 5% of the people who voted in the last gubernatorial election, to put that before the voters. Yeah, essentially what we call in the legal term challenging the decision of a municipal. That's not what this is. This is a town elector initiated proposition. So, I don't want, so there might be confusion over why we're calling this a municipal referendum versus a proposition. It's really a proposition. It's not.
It's no board action.
There was no board action that is being challenged. This was initiated by the residents of the town of Manlius. And it's under chapter 6 of town law, not under chapter 7, that you can put this in. So the town clerk, again, will look at the 4 corners of the document to determine whether or not the document meets the standards of the nominating petition under election law, and then make a decision. And she will consult with me, the town attorney, to come up with an answer to that question. And if she finds that the document meets the 4 corners of the document meets election law, then she will send a letter, tell the board that in this case, special election should be called within no more than 60, but less than 75 days from the date that the referendum was, or the petition was submitted to.
So it was over July 14th, what does that look out?
Sometime in September.
I calculated it. I wanted to be clear about something here too, because you use the terminology reviewing signatures. And it is my understanding that it is not that I would review signatures, much like I think all of the candidates here are familiar with, where I sit down and, you know, like the objections, things like that. I would not do it in that nature. So it's not me saying, okay, you know, Allison Weber signed and she lives at this address and this, it is really, and the word that was used very often is ministerial in nature. It is not me sitting down and saying, I validate these signatures. And there's been a lot of discussion of that. That's not actually the case. It's more, was the petition submitted in a manner that is valid, not was each signature valid in itself. So the next steps, I think that Tim alluded to here is that I have to make a decision. There is nothing in the law that says by when I have to make this decision, but I'm going to make this decision very soon, because if we find that, if you find that the decision is valid in the things that I have to contemplate, because to make sure that it is valid, and that is my role and responsibility, then we are going to have to do a special election 20 days prior to the election itself. You have to pass a resolution calling for the election, and we will have to decide, the town board will have steps that they'll take as part of the election process. I think that's some other things that I've been hearing discussed, is that I actually don't conduct the election. The town board has a more significant role in that process. I will have very administrative roles in this process, much like I do for a lot of the other things that the board does here. I'll publish notices in the paper, I'll put things on the website, I'll do things of that nature, but I won't necessarily be conducting the election itself. Town clerks previously used to conduct elections in Onondaga County, and right when I became clerk about 15 years ago that. I also wondered if you could speak a little bit, just that we've received the objections and anything to the objections. And then I think for my part, I feel that I have kind of given the public the information that they need to understand what has happened.
Okay, so objections have been filed. Looking at those objections and making certain determinations about them, which we haven't made yet, so we're not going to kind of get into that. I do want to also point out that if this proposition does go to a special election, and if it is approved, there will be significant changes to the makeup of the town board. One significant change would be, obviously, you bring in boards that town body. Another significant change would be that the term of office will go from a 4-year term to 2 years. Every elected,
Everybody would run it.
so there would not be any staggered terms. So it would be 2-year terms as opposed to what we have now, which are 4-year terms. That's specifically set out in section 8(5) of.
Only in your district. You wouldn't be running townwide every 2 years,
Right,
it would be
just
just within your district.
So that would be a change. There are other provisions of local laws and superseding existing laws that I'm thinking about that we can talk about in the future, depending on how this issue moves forward. But that's kind of the nuts and bolts of how things will change if the opposition passes. Those decisions would not be made until the wards were actually drawn and established. So the wards would not be established until you follow the law with the board of election, 2 commissioners for elections, creating the wards and then filing them out. That's when the wards are established. That's when the change and the board's membership takes place.
It will be a special election then. It won't be ready by November
Will there be a special election?
to elect people.
No, what happens is on December 31st of the year, that the board, that would be the cutoff. Then everybody would find on that.
So December 31st is.
No, because it would be impossible to create 10 wards this year. It would be to create a ward in the town of Manlius, 6 wards in the town of Manlius, because of the population center you have, is not going to be in this. So I,
Elections are a little busy.
yeah, like, so I actually built out town with a spread out population.
Yeah, no, like ability.
So the town of Manlius has 3 villages.
Yeah, to get density, plus, so it's like having like a swath of people in Greenville, but also like shutting up.
So I can imagine that. Boundary lines of the ward be established.
Well, I think there's also, I feel a question of. There's gonna be 3 town board members elected this year, 2 4-year terms. And how can changes to the law affect elected officials' terms? So like, if we had passed in the middle of a 2-year term to extend the terms of the highway superintendent and the town clerk. You wouldn't then immediately have an election to get the 4-year terms, they finish out the term and then run again for a 4-year term. So there's some questions as to how this would be staggered.
We're also potentially moving to even years. Right.
Yes.
So that's another
So
aspect.
I think the big thing is, the question is there some authority in this proposition that would shorten the terms that 3 people will be elected to this year? And 25, when everybody will run again, or would this actually not even take effect to 2027? Because the people that are elected this year have served their 4-year terms. And then the people in the middle would run at large more than likely for a 2-year term. And then once everybody's terms are over, you would then have an election in 2027. That's up in the air. We don't, I mean, again, this is archaic.
This is not a common area of law, frankly, I didn't. In my 25 years, I learned a lot over the last.
This is your favorite part about our.
I've learned a lot over the last week and a half, so, and there's a lot more to learn.
Allison, you've mentioned like it's ministerial that you're not like reviewing signature by signature. But if there was an opposition filed that called into question specific signatures, was that what happened? And then like who ruled on the signatures?
It's my understanding that as the objections go, at some point, it does go into the court system. I am working with him and we are trying to understand that. So that is still to be determined. And we are being very mindful of constantly through every step, number one, documenting the process. And then also making sure that we're not missing timeframes, because there are some timeframes associated with this. And then there are some places where there is no timeframe guidance. So,
I think you don't necessarily have anything that says when you have to make a determination by it.
no, but,
But
You do have data, you
Yeah,
have.
from a practical standpoint, there doesn't we see timeframes for that.
yes, yes.
I can't believe why I'm still.
So I know, I think one of the big things that I've got a lot of questions about is, so this will be an election that the board will essentially be run. Or putting it in the festival, which means, so this election will happen more than likely with this location as the sole polling place unless we can arrange others. We still have to get the equipment from the Board of Elections. I talked with one of the election commissioners. My understanding is that despite it being so close, machines will be available. I don't know if there's costs associated. The town does not have a way of notifying all of the residents about this election. So that's, I mean, just understanding elections, the ones that are the most important that people think have the highest turnout. And so when you have special elections, you tend to have very low turnout. And so it's, if this election moves forward, it's gonna be the responsibility for a number, for everybody, to make sure people are aware that this is a special election happening only at the, so you won't be able to go to your normal polling location, you'll have to come here. We won't have access to early voting, which has been used extensively. I don't believe there may be some.
You would be able to have access to everything depending on if you were registration. So you could register for this. Choose the pathway.
Instead of a board of registers, right?
Yes, so to be clear about what that is we'd set up a board of registration. Residents would have to come and register before that board to be able to vote. And that is the only way that you would be allowed to do absentee ballots.
So if we did that, you would have to come twice. You have to come here to register to vote, and then you have to show up.
If I'm reading it correctly, you cannot vote unless you've appeared before the board of personal registration. And then there are some guidelines as to how, like, the time frame that you have to have the board of registration. I think you would appoint them, and I do believe those people might be paid. I don't have the book in front of me,
Yeah.
but, so that is something to be.
You don't have.
So that,
Which would mean that any registered voter can vote,
that would mean any elector of the town now.
but we wouldn't have access to absentee ballots early.
How much, what percentage needs to pass, like, maybe if that.
Started 51%.
51% of the.
So,
30 people.
So how do people show up?
So these, so there are tiny numbers that like this.
Yes, for the children to show you everything.
I respect the 850 people who signed up because they were interested in this, but I wonder if even they will show up to all to vote. That is unbelievable. It feels like voter suppression.
well, and the petition was filed at such a date that it was, plan was filed. It was filed on a date and knowing that that would force.
So this could have been filed so that it would happen during the regular
I think it
election.
was, look, it was filed between August 23rd and September 8th. And,
Are you kidding me?
So what we were talking about, you're talking about the process of this problem. Does anybody else have any?
So we'll hopefully have information by.
I just have a question about the objection, because the original objection didn't say anything. Has there been a follow-up that actually had what the objections were?
Yes, there are specific objections, and one of the questions that was asked of me is that my responsibility to send objections to everybody. Is my understanding that that is not my responsibility, that it is the responsibility of, and I'm gonna take the word up here, the objectors. So,
Let's keep in mind, there are objectors, there are objectors. We don't have to do that. This is not counting that they have a separate role, I guess. So they're taking on a separate role, and that will be part of the whole discussion. take place.
Okay, good to know this, because I was trying to figure out if this was an action in earnest to get the representation and to think about how we can best represent people, or if this was about sharing and living. And I'm starting to get that understanding.
Next up.
And I will stay after, if anybody else has questions after, I'll be happy to answer any questions from the public, seeing like, have questions.
Okay, next up, we have a new approval of the minutes, which is cable. So we have approval of abstract report.
It's sure that, like, maybe I should be pretty extra from the 14, and we have $420,000 like really down. But anyway, and there really isn't a better this time. Everybody was very. The problem always responsible. It's not that it's not expensive, but. Well, yeah.
All those in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, motion carries. Any further business, anything?
Yes, the summer musical happened on last weekend, and we will have 735 attendees. It was a very good turnout. Thank you very much to our sponsors.
It was amazing.
It was a very, very good show. You guys didn't see anything missed out, sorry. We had a really good time. It was a really good show. So we have 735 attendees, so all of them are actually from my home. It was good.
Yeah, this is a great project.
It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much to Christine and Eric, the producers, and everybody.
Yes, we will have more information on the ads and everything else, soon. Some of them are going to be discussed out this information.
Thank you.
Yes, just real quick on the water district, stuff. Thank you for moving that through. Thomas Sullivan's meeting is next Wednesday. They're gonna be doing the same thing now that Tom Ward has declared the negative declaration. That will allow Sullivan to go through their Article 12A. The ultimate goal, as you mentioned, we applications. There is a signature for grant application form that requires a board resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign and submit the application. You could wait until Sullivan gets to their meeting because you've got one more meeting to go, or get it.
I think
Make the resolution tonight.
No, because somebody can make, so the resolution would be to authorize the supervisor to sign the WIA application. That needs to be submitted by, what's the date?
Like the first, right?
No.
Oh, wait, oh,
It's extended to August 11th due to the heavy rains down there.
So,
okay, so I'll make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the WIA application
based on the map.
based on the stuff that we just did. To after Sullivan has approved, but before August 11th. July, second that.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, motion carries. Anything else?
A lot of questions. We are submitting with CFAs. Did anybody have any questions with CFAs? That's you. Okay, thank you. The other one we don't have yet from Jared, we will send it around either.
Okay, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those